Hey, I'm Susan Palmer of Lead Cat Press. Welcome to my studio update. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today I wanted to talk about jazz. So you may have heard that phrase that if you understand jazz and you know how to play jazz music, that you can play any style of music. And so I wanted to kind of get into that a little bit. But first of all, I always ask a student who says, I'm thinking about studying jazz, but I don't know. I always ask them if they actually like to listen to jazz, because I think that is the number one indicator of whether or not you should study jazz music. So if you like jazz or some jazz elements in music, then that's definitely something that you should look to study if you're a guitar player. The other thing is that I think of, there's two art forms in music that have systems for understanding music and require a high level of technical proficiency that can transfer to other styles of music. So I think of jazz as being one of those and classical as being the other. For me, I gravitated towards jazz because, one, I enjoyed the music, and two, I found that the theoretical explanations were more transferable to different styles of music that I was interested in playing. So for me, jazz was a really good fit. The other thing that I learned pretty early on was that jazz musicians are really cool people. I was fortunate enough to attend a jazz camp when I was about 14 years old. I went to the Mount Hood Festival of Jazz camp at Mount Hood Community College. And we got to play and learn and hang with all these really incredible jazz musicians. And what I noticed at that young age was something very beautiful. They treated all of us kids like we were adults when we were playing music. And I really appreciated that. I hadn't really been in that situation before. But when you're a guitar player playing with another guitar player, you both are playing music together. And that's something that I've kind of carried into my teaching as well, is, treating every student, whatever their age, as a musician, and treating them respectfully. And, we both have this appreciation for music and for this art form. And that's just a really cool way to bond with other people. So that was kind of a personal story there of why I like to study, what kind of got me into studying jazz. Besides the fact that I really loved Charlie Christian and Benny Goodman records when I was young, and some other artists that they played on the jazz radio station in Portland, Oregon. So that was, for me, a real gravitating force. The other thing that I noticed was a lot of guitar players that I admired had studied jazz or could kind of play some jazz. My teachers played jazz and understood that system, and they taught that to me. And not only that, but they were able to use that system for helping me understand the kind of music that I was interested in as a teenager, which was really helpful because I wasn't 100% into jazz. I still listened to all kinds of music that my peers listened to, and just, teen angst music. So it was nice to have a system that we could use to talk about different styles of music. So regardless if you're playing classical guitar or classical music in general or jazz, there are certain things that you learn that are really important as a musician, I think. One is, you understand your fretboard. So by playing both of those styles, you really get to unlock scale patterns and note names, and, you have to in order to play the music. Another thing that I really liked about jazz is the rich harmony. And not only the, extended and altered chords, but I enjoyed learning how chord progressions worked. And, a jazz standard is just jam-packed with all kinds of cool harmonic devices that you can use and see in other pieces. And I liked how that was something that I could take from a jazz piece and maybe write my own music from. The other thing is rhythm. So with jazz music especially, we have a lot of syncopated rhythms. These help inform any kind of music that you work on apart from jazz. So syncopated rhythm shows up a lot in rock music and country music and rap music. Like it's a really important element, and understanding how that works and how articulation works with those rhythms can be transferred to all kinds of styles. And I think that's really crucial to becoming a well-rounded player. Another is melody. So with a lot of melodies, most melodies maybe, they are formed based off of chord tones and arpeggios. And so by studying jazz, you learn your arpeggios everywhere, and that is something that you can carry into, again, all styles of music. You also learn a lot about melodic embellishments, how to stretch out a melody, how to maybe condense a melody. We learn how to flip around these melodies and make them unique and interesting, I guess I'll say. And that's something that you also learn when you study classical music in college. But for me, it was just clearer when I learned that in the jazz realm. So that's another reason why I think jazz is really important. Another, like I mentioned before, is technique. It takes significant technique to be able to play jazz well, and same with classical. So you're going to get really proficient at that. We don't do a lot of tapping in jazz, but a lot of the speed picking and chordal work there requires a lot of really good and well-practiced technique. For classical and jazz players, it can involve a lot of reading. So, you tell me if sight reading through the Omnibook helps you become a better reader. So I think that, reading is really important. Obviously, my first book has tons of reading exercises in there, both rhythmic and melodic there, all up the fretboard. Because I think reading is very important no matter what style you're playing in. It helps you keep track of your own ideas, and you have just a history of music that you can read from and learn from. So I think that is another thing you get from jazz. And then the last thing that I was thinking of was ear training, which is, you can think of ear training in terms of chords and also in terms of melodies or solos. And a lot of jazz musicians are required to notice when they hear something that they like and to learn those little melodic sections, dissect them, and then transfer them to other tunes or songs of their own, solos of their own. And that's a technique that you definitely learn when you're studying and playing jazz. All that being said, if you want to learn how to play jazz, or you want the elements of jazz to come into your playing and be part of whatever style you're playing, I think it's important that you find the right teacher for you. So if you are a die-hard jazz fan, I highly recommend you find a jazz-only guitar instructor, somebody who is mostly specialized in jazz. What I help most of my students with who are interested in rock music and country and R&B and all kinds of things is, I try to give them the proficiency of a jazz musician, but we kind of stylistically put that into the kinds of music that they're interested in playing or that they're already playing. So I think it's important that, if you want to study jazz, find the right teacher for you. I mean, regardless of what you want to study, I think you need to find the right teacher for you. But having somebody who maybe knows how these elements of jazz can be applied to different styles, that can be really helpful. So with that being said, I had a very busy week. I had a great free guitar class that I taught yesterday, and I just enjoy really working with all kinds of people from different parts of the country. And just want to remind you, I do teach a free class every month. I also have 4-week beginning, intermediate, and advanced classes that I offer each month. And I also teach private lessons. So you can take your pick if you're interested in working with me. And because of my busy weekend, I'm going to take some time off here. So I will see you next time.